Record. Well, hello folks, my name's Al Olson, and this is Rick Belair. We're working for the Rhode Island Music Hall of Fame, and today we're interviewing Sugar Ray Norcia at his home in Exeter, Rhode Island. How are you today, Ray?
I'm doing great. It's a fine day.
It's a beautiful day.
It is.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about where you were born, when you were born, your family and your neighborhood, to give us an idea of your background?
Sure, I can. I was born in Rhode Island. I was born in Westerly, Rhode Island, at the Westerly Hospital. And the first 3 years of my life, I lived in an Italian neighborhood, so that really I don't remember much about those years on Oak Street in Westerly. Then we moved to Pawcatuck, Connecticut, or sometimes I call it Stonington, Connecticut. They're connected, you know. Yeah, I was 3 years old, so we moved to, my grandparents bought a farm in Connecticut, 80-acre farm, and they had the whole deal, cows, pigs, chickens, you know, selling milk and all that. But I was a little bit too young to remember those days, but it was there. And those 80 acres got broken down into, sublot divisions for the family. So as I grew up, my aunt lived there, my uncle lived here, and we didn't have to drive to any family picnics or anything, just walk. It was a wonderful kind of way to grow up. And the farmhouse being the focal point of the property, big red farmhouse on the hill, where we had Sunday school and we all sang. And, so that was a nice way to grow up. And musically speaking, well, as I was a kid, my two uncles, was on my mother's side, played guitar, bass, and my brother plays piano. Plus my father is a vocal coach, was a vocal coach and teacher in the school systems. Music all around me. My mother sang jazz, and they would rehearse at my home. When I was like going to bed, I'd hear a band rehearsing down in the basement. It would be my family band, playing, jazz tunes and tunes of the day and general business, I guess you'd call them. And I'd go slip down during the week, though, when they left their instruments. They left their instruments set up down there, and there'd be a big string bass, a piano and a guitar, and I would fiddle around with that stuff. And I took a liking to music, obviously.
And when were you born, Ray?
I was 1954, so it makes me 62 now.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole life, I just played around with his instruments and listened to my father give lessons. That was also his studio where they rehearsed, where he gave private lessons, vocal lessons. And I'd be sitting in there, sort of babysitting me, and that kind of, through osmosis, picked up on his teachings of the voice, which was great. And go see my brother. My brother was in the band as well. We play at the Knickerbocker in Westerly still to this day. Another place I grew up musically when I got a little older. But my mom sang there in 1947. I have a cassette tape of her singing there with her two brothers. Her parents would come and supervise. Music, music, music everywhere. My father said he sang to me in the womb. And so that's how early I was listening to the voice and all that. And
ahead of his time.
yeah, that's right. He believed in stuff like that.
And how old were you when you were going down to your father's studio at that point?
Oh, yeah, I was probably from, 5 years old on, sitting in, listening to and give lessons. Right up until when I left home, which was, I was 17, 16. So, I learned a lot from that. My dad, I have to add this part because he played excellent harmonica. Not blues. You couldn't really bend the notes that you use in your blues idiom, but he was the life of the party, at gatherings, playing the harp. And I always said to myself, yeah, I want to do that. Because it looked like a lot of fun.
What kind of music was he playing?
He was playing like cowboy songs, Oh Susanna, that kind of thing. But he had the ability to play chords, tongue blocking, we call it in the harp world.
Tongue blocking.
Tongue blocking is when you play one single note on the side of the harp and then your tongue's going like this with a chord behind it. So it sounds like a squeezed box, that sound that you'll get with the chording behind the note. And he did that so well. That's how I picked up on that. So I got to attribute the vocals and harmonica from an early start from him.
So when you consider the popular music you were listening to, how did you come to enjoy the blues? Where did that come from?
I really had no interest ever, or still, listening to the music of the day. I think as far into it as I got, besides blues, is I liked the voice of, when I was a kid, I liked James Taylor, Carole King, that era. I used to have a few of their records, and I liked the fact that he's a very melodic, beautiful voice to this day. But that didn't last long, I was in high school, and my friends kept bringing me records in school. So I was maybe 15, 16 when I heard, Sonny Land Slim, Little Walter, and Sonny Boy Williamson, and I would sing in the school plays at that point. I was a good actor, and took lead parts in the plays. And so these guys said, "We're starting a band. Would you be interested in singing some of this stuff?" Hey, take a couple of records home. Elmore James, I think, they wanted me to listen to some Elmore James.
So these were friends of yours?
Yeah, friends of mine.
Who were these friends?
They were hippie friends. You know what I mean? Back in those days, with the long hair and kind of anti-establishment kind of. That's where the music came in a little bit too. It's like, we're going to listen to this, not what everybody else is listening to. This is cool. This is a cool kind of music, man. Check it out. Blues.
Like lots of folks are of that a little younger than that. I would listen to the Stones records and the Zeppelin records, and I look on the back and say, "Who's Muddy Waters?" And I bought those records.
Right.
But you went directly to the source.
Directly.
Huh.
Exactly. And I said, "Wow, this is cool." Yeah, and then we had some rehearsals, and that's, I don't know what the exact date, but I was probably, like I say, 16, maybe even 15, when played our first gig.
Who were some of the guys that were turning you on to the music, giving you the records?
One guy's name is Blunt White. He lives in Stonington. I just played the Mystic, Connecticut Blues Festival the other day. Well, it's an annual outside blues music series that they have. We drew about 1,000 people. It was a great night. And he's one of the coordinators.
Huh.
Plays a mean harmonica.
Wow.
Great harmonica player. So he was one of the hippies. Another guy was Jocko Wimfarmer, he's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
He was in my band, the Blue Tones, for years, and he passed away while
He was in Roomful.
Yeah. And his brother Jimmy played bass too. So he brought me records. Ray, listen to these things. One day I was riding in the van with him at a young age like that, and he said, "Man, you sounded good. Your voice and your harp, sweet like sugar, Ray."
That's where it came from.
And that was it. Bang. It stuck with me from that early age.
So who were some of the earliest blues influences? You mentioned one. The records. Who were some of those artists?
The records were Little Walter, Sonny Boy. I mentioned Elmore, Big Walter, Sonny Lane Slim. And then of course, I branched out and got into more sophisticated blues like T-Bone, and B.B. King and that kind of thing, Albert King. But I just started exploring. I think that's what's missing with a lot of kids these days. They don't go to where it actually came from. Yeah. Go back far enough and do the exploring. You were like explorers, going to Boston weekly and to the music shops, coming home with an armload of albums, and then getting together on the weekends and drinking beer and spinning the records. Like, "Hey, listen to this. Hey, you don't know, listen to this."
Did you go down to Roberts?
Yeah.
In New London?
Yeah.
That was a big blues record.
And then I incorporate these new findings, these new discoveries into rehearsals for the bands that I was in.
So why did you decide on harmonica out of all the instruments?
At the very first, I was just singing. Even though my dad was playing around the house, I didn't know how to play harp. And again, friends of mine, like Blunt White, I mentioned, I want you to try playing the harp. We had a wonderful harp player for a while, and he just missing gigs and drinking and stuff. So I'd fill in for him, and got to the point where I told him to stay home. I was having too much fun playing.
We won't ask his name.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was good.
Did you have any formal music training on the harmonica?
No. I always say I wore the grooves out on the album. Listening to Little Walter in particular. Nobody's telling me that, there's positions of the harmonica, the first position, second position, third position. And I didn't know what I was listening to on the record, so it was very difficult to figure out what was going on, because the band's in E and Little Walter's using an A harmonica. I'm like, what? So I didn't have the luxury of going online or somebody telling me. Just figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Took a little longer, I suppose, but it was a good way to learn.
Who were some of these first bands? What were the names of the bands? And
that's funny you ask, because it's been so long. I was even asking my wife, do you remember? But I did come up with some, like, 1970, I think, about 1969, 70, I was in a band called Linseed, Sam and the Oilers. These are the guys who brought me the records, just singing. And we were doing Memphis Slim tunes, and we had a couple of horns. We're just kids. Yeah, just kids. And the Wimfiners were in the band, and this other guy named Chris Daniels, who's still around, playing guitar. And
Chaco played drums?
Chaco was a drummer.
Right. I was confusing him and Jimmy.
With Jimmy on the bass.
Chaco played with Otis and Ridley at one point.
Wow, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah.
No kidding.
I knew Jaco a bit through Ronald Martinez.
Yes.
Yeah, before he passed away, yeah.
Not to get off the subject, but Mudcat, my bass player, just gave me a DVD that he's had, obviously since 1978, of the Blue Tones playing in Spain. Jaco was in the band at that time. And we played on his show called Musical Express. I just watched it last night for the first time since 1978.
Wow.
I only saw it once. So I'm looking at it going, oh my God. Who else was on the show was Bob Marley. Was incredible.
That's pretty heavy.
Yeah, so it's all in Spanish, so all you can understand is, hey, the Blue Tones. So it was a gas to watch that.
Wow.
Young kids.
The Hall of Fame would like a copy of that. Is it something he made?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll get you that. It's right in the house.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm sure there's no copy code on it. He must have it transferred from a
He did it himself, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's kind of cool when you see it, because there's sometimes a line goes through there, like
Yeah,
you're looking at
yeah,
old
sure.
video. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it is old.
It is an old video, yeah.
What other bands have you got there?
Well, after Linseed, Sam and the Others, I was trying to put this together, like chronologically. I probably didn't do it well, but I had a band called Arm & Hammer Blues Band. This is when I was playing harmonica now. Good little band, too.
Who was in that group?
My same drummer that I've been playing with for 40 some odd years, Neil Gubin, was on drums. His brother was the bass player, Kevin Gubin, who I still know and see, comes to the gigs. The other guys, I don't even remember, man, I'll tell you the truth. But we were together for years and years. Played at the Knickerbocker. All these bands played at the Knickerbocker. I was with Sarah Brown, bass player. She lives in Texas now, but she lived in Boston for quite a while. We played together. She had a band called Hard Luck Brownie and the Tribulations.
Huh.
And even Al Copley was with us for a while, the piano player, and we played mostly in local gigs in Connecticut for quite a while. Then there was Sugar Ray and the Blue Stompers. This was pre-Blue Tones, but the same kind of Chicago blues. We're getting into the more Chicago blues style rather than jump blues. Then came Sugar Ray and the Blue Tones when I met Ronnie Earl.
All right, what's going on?
Yeah. My drummer Neil got a phone call from Mudcat Ward, my bass player, playing with this guy named Ronnie Horvath, which was known then, in Providence, Rhode Island, at the old Met Cafe.
You're too young for that.
Yeah. He says,
Plus, when I was a kid, my folks summered here. They wouldn't let me go to those places.
yeah, right on the
It was
corner.
this
there.
big.
Yeah.
This room
Wow.
We were like the house band there for a while. We caused an uproar from charging the cover price from 50 cents to $1 when I was working there. I remember that. And so anyway, yeah, Neil says I'm going up to play with this guy named Ronnie Horvath and Mudcat Ward, and Anthony wasn't even around yet. The piano player Anthony Gerasi hadn't come into the scene. Neil said to Ronnie and Mudcat, "Well, I worked with this guy Sugar Ray for years. You should hear him. Yeah, bring him along." So we played, and it was like magic immediately. I was playing with good guitar players prior to that, but this was better than good. You know, Ronnie was smoking, and we gelled. It was like a glove, you know. And we were together for a long time, and that evolved into years of Sugar Ray and the Blue Tones, and then he sort of drifted to Ronnie Earl and the Broadcasters, and it's the same band. We changed the name, so he's the front man, and I was still in the band. It's kind of musical circles.
We have the records.
Yeah.
Same group,
Yeah.
different leader.
That's
That
wild.
was famous in the jazz world.
Yeah,
You know?
well, we did well with Ronnie because he thought ahead of his time, because he said let's back up some of the real guys from Chicago and whatnot. Let's get Big Walter Horton up here and bring him to Boston. Let's get Otis Rush, you know, Hubert Sumlin, guys like that, and we did. You know, J.B. Hutto, and we backed them up numerous times, especially at the Speakeasy in Boston, Somerville. Back there, which is a parking lot now, I think. But we backed up, you know, Joe Turner and Roosevelt Sykes, and the list goes on and on.
Have you got any memories that stand out of an experience that just still wows you to this day?
Well, I always tell a story about Roosevelt Sykes during one of those evenings. He says, "Man, you guys sound good. Got any records?" You know, no, we haven't gone into that yet. Well, you ought to. You know, because you're good enough to put on record for sure. It wasn't long after that, you know, he lit the flame.
Huh.
So we went in, met Ron Bartolucci, and we started recording.
Right. For Baron Records. Ron Bartolucci was the owner of a small label, Baron Records.
Yeah. And you know, the first was Sugar Ray and the Blue Tones with Baron Records, and then there was Ronnie Earl did a lot of records after that I was on.
Billed as Little Roddy, I believe.
At one point.
Yes, the second
and
one.
Even Ronnie Youngblood at one point.
Ah.
Youngblood. People don't know that.
There were other records related to that. Your immediate gang there with Johnny Nicholas used to.
Yes.
Johnny and Ronnie made records together, right?
Guitar Johnny, he called himself.
That's right.
And Ronnie was in his band for a while.
Right.
Too, with Sarah Brown, I think, too,
Right.
at one point.
There was a lot of.
Yeah, the way it should be, anyway. As a community of musicians just, you know, drifting into each other's paths.
I first ran across the name Johnny Nicholas when I was doing oral history interviews in Texas with a guy, and he had played with him at the courthouse in Bexar County back in the early '70s. He still had a video of it.
Oh, wow.
It was Frankie Rhode, and then I came up here and I got to interview him later too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. How about the Texas Westerly connection?
Well, I have to say that Johnny Nicholas was a big influence on me as well, and giving me kind of, you know, my break. Because I was just a young kid from Westerly, Stonington area. Never really played, you know, we played the local places within 10, 15 miles, you know. And he said, "Hey, you know, why don't you get on the train right there in Westerly? The train's right there across the street from the Knickerbocker.
Yeah.
And I'll pick you up in Boston. take the train to Boston. I'll pick you up, you know. And I play at these. He played at the Speakeasy and other places, and he knew Big Walter and Johnny Shines and people like that personally, you know. And so I would go, and I'd get off the train, and I would, oh, I'm a country boy. I'm in the big city now. It was exciting, and he introduced me to the Boston audience as a singer, you know, harmonica player. Then he introduced me to Big Walter and Johnny Shines. And, you know, I really have to give him a lot of credit for helping me in that way, and exposing me. And then, of course, he moved to Texas, and he was asleep at the wheel and all that.
Yeah.
He's been back a lot, though.
Yeah.
He's back.
To get the Knickerbocker back on.
Yeah.
Back off the ground.
That was about 7 years ago, I guess now. Now, like I said, did you have any other connections with the Texas musician, the Austin folks, like the Thunderbirds, or any of those?
Well, I think it might have been Johnny himself, actually, that says, hey, have you ever heard this guy named Kim Wilson? Because he knew I loved harmonica, you know, and I loved to sing. No. You know, I remember way back then in the distant past. No, I can't say, you know, it was in a band called the Thunderbirds. I said, no, can't say I've ever heard them, you know. Hey, you gotta check them out, man, because you really dig it. And so Roomful of Blues played every Sunday night at the Knickerbocker down there in Westerly. And one night they brought the Thunderbirds in from Texas, you know, double bill. I think Luann Barton might have been singing with them as well at that point. And that's where I met Kim, you know, Kim Wilson, way back then. And we both had a mutual admiration for each other since that day, you know. We also brought, you know, Stevie Ray. People don't believe me, but he opened up a few times for Sugar Ray and the Blue Tones at certain clubs where he hadn't broke out yet, you know. He'd come up here with Luann as his vocalist, Luann Barton.
Double trouble.
Yeah. And we did shows. I think we might have played at Lupo's and the Knickerbocker and all that, and we shared the bill, you know.
He played.
My God.
he played at the Little Met, the original Met. I don't know if you were on the bill, but I remember he was there, and everyone, the word was already getting around about him, and everyone was down there. You know, this is when the Thunderbirds started setting their sights on Preston and Fran and the
that's the thing. Yeah, they'd hear when they're in Texas. I can imagine they would talk to each other and go, "Have you heard this band? You know, Roomful of Blues."
They do. When I was down there, I was the volunteer coordinator for the San Antonio Blues Society, and I told them, "Well, I'm moving back to Rhode Island. I have to go to Texas." And they all said, "Roomful, you got to see this band, Roomful."
So when the Thunderbirds heard Roomful, they're like, "Oh my God, you know, they're on the same page as we are. Wow, it's amazing." And of course, then they started sharing musicians, you know, and that kind of thing.
Yep. Do you want to go to Roomful now, or did you have any more Blue Tone
well,
questions?
No, I'm not. Before we get to Roomful, you did the album with after Ronnie left the group. You made the album for Varick, for Rounder.
Yeah.
This is before Roomful.
Okay. Are you speaking
with Kid
of
Baggin?
Sweet and Swinging? That one there?
Why am I blanking on the name?
Well, it
the
could
checkerboard pattern, kind of.
Could be Rockin' Sugar Daddy. And I don't even know which one. Between right after Roomful of Blues.
No, before Roomful.
Oh, before Roomful of Blues.
Yes.
Yeah, I see.
After Ronnie left, Kid Baggin was in the group. I think maybe 89. When did you join Roomful? 90?
A little later.
91.
Okay.
So you're talking about Rockin' Sugar Daddy, I think.
I'm blanking on it.
I should know myself, but
the two historians, the musicians themselves.
Yeah. No.
Knockout.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Yes, it's analog.
Yeah.
It takes a little while.
Ron Levy was producing us back then.
There wasn't much recording activity between those early singles and that album years later. Once Ronnie left the group, you didn't do a lot of recording, but then you wound up on Rounder.
That's correct, yeah.
And how did you get Kid Baggin in the group?
Yeah. Well, when Ronnie left at one point, you know, we had a kind of a musical chair thing going on in the guitar department. Couldn't find the right guy. We had auditions. I think it's the first time, or the only time in my career, where we like put ads in the paper and just audition for a blues guitar player. We went through about 5 or 6 or 7 guys, and nobody clicked. One guy even like quit his job and lived in California, and he was under the impression somehow of miscommunication that he got the gig, and he flew over here and tried out, and I had to send him back. Yeah, it was kind of ugly. But we had one more guy left that afternoon, and it was Kid Bangham. Knock, knock on the door, and there's this guy. His hair's all disheveled, and he's carrying a guitar with no case. And we're like, oh, brother. Here we go. Well, and he plugged in and said, that's what we've been looking for. That sound, that feel, that's what we've been looking for. And he was green too. He didn't. The blue tones. Somebody might argue with me, but we came up with this term called march. This term, it's a blues that goes cha-chung, 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 that everybody plays. Ka-chung, ka-chung, ka-chung. So we told this Kid Bangham before he showed up for rehearsal. We like marches and stuff. He didn't know what the heck we were talking about. So he calls up Duke Robillard, the only thing he could think of, and says, Duke, these guys want me to do a march. What the hell is that? So Duke goes, it's ka-chung, ka-chung, ka-chung. Oh, one of those. And we hired him on the spot. He was just a kid, hence the name we called him Kid. Good Bangham.
What was the actual first name?
Doug.
Doug
Bangham. He's from Allentown, Pennsylvania. He used to take the train up here for every gig and stuff. But we clicked.
He was commuting?
Yeah, a lot of times we don't stop without him, because don't worry, he'll be on the second set.
Yeah, boy.
The only thing we skipped is the entrance of Anthony.
Oh, yeah.
When did Tony...
right about those days we were talking about moving back to the Met, when I first met Ronnie and all that. It wasn't not long after that where Ronnie and Mudcat were witnessing the Great Muddy Waters playing in Boston. Not exactly sure which club, but and Anthony was there in the audience. I believe Anthony opened up with his little band. He was going to Berkeley School of Music at the time, and Mudcat and Ronnie's ears were like, this guy's pretty good. Can play the blues too. So they asked him to join the band, and he quit school. He was in the middle of a thesis. He says, he was like, wow. He quit.
His parents were very pleased.
Yeah. They wanted him to go back to school and cut his hair and take that earring out. But he never regretted it either. That's when he started in the band. I don't know what year that was, but that was a long time ago. And when the Kid joined, getting back to Kid, we went on our first extended tour, for a month or so. Went to California and back as the Blue Tones. We were just rookies at traveling, but we had one hell of a great time. And one place in particular was Tulsa, Oklahoma. We played a place called Joey's, right? It was a place where all the blues bands would stop in. We were at the top of our game, and at that point, and nobody really heard of it. They didn't know who we were. They were just curious people in the audience. But it was being broadcast live by the local Tulsa radio station. That thing went viral. They didn't have that word back then, but that tape was so freaking heavy. I remember playing Black Knight and all these tunes that we still do to this day, but smoking. And this guy who was set up in the corner and broadcasting this thing, he kept going like, "Oh my God, listen to these kids," and that tape is still around. You can go online, I think, right now, and go on YouTube, and some of it will be on there. Amazing.
This would be the promotional tour for Knockout.
Yeah.
Rounder album.
Okay.
Yeah. And on our way home from California on that trip, we stopped down at Austin, Texas, was the club, the famous club down Antone's, and we played a night there. Antone was like, he came in, in the middle of the set or near the end. I was playing some Big Walter, which I do every night, and I always have. And not unbeknownst to me, was one of his favorites of all times was Big Walter, So of course we hit it off big. Kid, come with me. He took me across the street to his record shop about 2 or 3 in the morning by this point, and he went through his bins and he's getting every Big Walter record he had, and just giving them to me.
Wow.
What a memory that was. But also in the audience was Franny Christina, I think, and Kim, and they heard Kid, and they were like, "Whoa!" There wasn't too long after that where Kid got the call to join the Thunderbirds.
Okay.
And now we're at Roomful.
Now we're
He gets the call to join Roomful, leaving the Blue Tones on their own.
Let us move ahead to the Roomful of Blues and how you got involved with that. If he went there, how did you get into the Roomful?
Well, I have to say beforehand is I used to sit in with Roomful of Blues down at the Knickerbocker quite often when I was, young, and it was kind of hard to get their attention, because Duke was up there, and this was one of the original Roomful of Blues conglomerations, and they were smoking hot and backing up people like Sil Austin and Red Prysock and Cleanhead Vincent and Joe Turner and all that. And so for this kid to say, "Can I sit in?" It was like, yeah, maybe next week, But once in a while, I did get the opportunity, and I caught their ears, I said to myself, someday, man, oh man, I love this horn section and stuff. That someday came in 1991. Greg Piccolo called me up, said, we got a long tour coming up in California, and we're also going to be recording out there in Pat Benatar's studio with her husband Neil Giraldo will be producing. Are you interested? Yeah. What took you so long?
Yeah. You didn't say that.
And no, I didn't say that, but I'm thinking that, I asked why. He says, well, we're going to make this record, and the band has come to the decision that we want a stronger vocalist. Duke was gone by this time.
Greg was singing lead.
Yeah.
Yes.
For those years.
Yeah. And Ronnie had been in the band. He was gone as well. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. When do we leave? And it was like next Thursday. It was not far away. Come to town and I'll give you some material to learn. And that, oh man, it was like a lot of stuff, if you could imagine. Tapes with cassette tapes.
Yep.
Multiple cassette tapes filled with tunes I was supposed to learn, and so it wasn't easy. My first gig was like a big gig in San Francisco somewhere, but I pulled it off, and then we did make a record which never came out, but it was cool to hear Pat Benatar was coming in and out of the studio listening. And
Is that the same time her album was recorded with the Roomful horns?
That is around the same time, yeah.
That which came out.
I heard about that.
But I did not know they cut an album on Roomful.
Yeah, I have it. Some of the tunes are...
I need a copy for the museum, the archive.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an actual... what do I have it on CD? I might have it on tape. I don't know if...
That's okay. You can transfer
We can
it.
digitize it.
And you'll be better off to have digital copies.
True. There's one tune we did, it's called That Certain Door with Smiley Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
And that one stands out to me from that session. I'm like, oh my God. And Doug James used to always want to do that tune. I think he was the instigator. Learn that one. We recorded it, and I still say to myself to this day, too bad that never came out.
Oh. Can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah.
Do you have any outstanding memories besides that recording experience with Roomful on a tour or something?
With Roomful, man, there's a lot of them. I mentioned Yuma, Arizona earlier. I was going to, we broke down on our way to California one time. And Yuma, as you know, is hot. You know, that's hot part of the country.
Was that the infamous vehicle Roomful used that broke down a lot?
This was not the bookmobile, but it was something after that. It was a big white van with a long traveling van with some bunks in it. Very uncomfortable.
Who was driving?
Bob Bell, I think.
Oh, Bob was driving himself.
I think so. But anyway, yeah, we broke down. There was nowhere around, and it was like 120 degrees. Not exaggerating, in the shade, but we couldn't. The van, the truck cast a shadow, you see, and we all stood in that shadow because we thought we were going to die. And there's no cell phones and you know, I was like, this is a long time ago. Yeah. And the shadow kept getting smaller and smaller as the sun went off. We're crowding into this shadow. We got rescued, and we made it to the gig too. It was like the House of Blues in L.A. or something. That was a memory. Another memory sticks out is the Pier Festival in Belgium. We played with Roomful of Blues, and try to think. His name always escapes me. Heidi Ho.
Cab Calloway.
Cab Calloway was on the show.
Wow.
And he played after us, so we opened up. And one thing that he did really is like old school. You know, he took all the monitors. He had all the monitors scratched. Took them off the stage. He took all the microphone stands. Had them take those off the stage. I'm thinking to myself, what's he doing? He had a big horn section and everything. And he held the mic. And he held court, you know. He was the master up there. I'll never forget that. And when a trumpet player or a horn player had to take a solo, he'd bring the mic over and he'd decide when he was through, you know, because he had control. And when he wanted to dance around or something, he'd put the mic on the ground, right on the stage. He didn't want to stand. It was just, to me, it was like something I'd never seen. It probably goes back a ways from the days when they didn't have that
old
stuff.
Style, yeah. That's all they had was one microphone.
Yeah.
Sure, but he started in the 30s, you know.
Yeah.
This was his resurgence after the Blues Brothers movie.
So to elaborate on that story, they had this beer there called Duvel or Duval. It was very, very, very strong beer, and they also had on hand for the musicians was some cognac, you know, because me and Carl we like to have a cognac now and again, and they kept saying that this beer's strong, be careful. We got quite a buzz on going, and we shared the bus with Cab Calloway back to the hotel and his band. So you get Roomful and Cab Calloway in the same bus. And, you know, Carl's catching the buzz, and he's telling the horn players, like, you need to get some more trombone players. You need a trombone section, you know. But we're all having a grand old time, and we got back to the bar, and we were drinking some more with Cab Calloway, and some guy was selling dogs, not Doberman Pinschers, but some kind of big dog like that. He was selling puppies. Cab actually bought one in Belgium, and he arranged somehow to bring that dog home with him.
Can't do that today.
No. Well, I mean, there's thousands of great memories. I really had a good time with that band. I remember Porky, the trombone player, one time, you know, it's normal for a band to complain.
I should mention Carl Querford, who was a trombonist, and Porky is Porky Cohen, who was a trombonist with Roomful as well.
Yeah. But you know how bands get to, you know, they complain about this or that, the accommodations or the food, or whatever, you know, just it's what you do. And band I've been in, that's what we do. But I remember Porky got upset one day and he goes, you guys, you don't realize, these are the golden years, these are the best times of your life. Someday you're going to look back and say, man, the good old days when we used to travel around on a bus and play music, and he was right, of course. Yeah. What we were complaining about. It was fantastic.
The other part of the Roomful story is, I guess you did 3 albums with Roomful.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Tenure, and that's the occasion of your first Grammy nomination.
Yeah.
Is one of the Roomful Blues albums.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. Turn it on, turn it up.
Yep.
Yeah, there's that one.
So what was happening with the Blue Tones this whole time this was going on?
Yeah. Well, they kind of spread out and did other musical things. Anthony had his own band called Locomotives. Mudcat was playing with Jay Giles and Magic Dick, Blues Time. Neil Goulman, the drummer, was playing with John Hammond. Did a couple of records with him. He got a Grammy-nominated record as well. So, we kept busy.
Kid Bangham and Duke Robillard replaced Jimmy Vaughan in the Thunderbirds.
At the same time?
Yes.
Yeah,
What was going on?
Yeah.
Wow. I've asked that question about the interchange in Westerly, Austin, but it just seems there's more and more to be learned about
When
that.
Jimmy quit,
Yes.
they got Duke right away, and they said, we want somebody else. You know, this kid we've seen, his name is Bangham, and he said, Duke said, oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So he made the connection, or reconnected Kid with Thunderbirds, and they made an album for Columbia and toured.
Holy cow.
That's not part of this story.
Yeah. and I hate to say it, I hope he doesn't see this, but I had another guitar player, and his name always escapes me. I don't know why. It's one of those blank things, but he was in the Blue Tones. He was also recruited by the Thunderbirds at one point. His name will come to me, and I'll let you know what it was.
A Rhode Island guy?
Yeah, well, he lived Martha's. He lived like Worcester.
All right, so a New England guy. Then.
Yeah, New England guy. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll see if I can
Yeah.
piece that together.
Okay. So how did the Blue Tones get back together again after you left Roomful?
Yeah. I think there was a little point in time there where I traveled around as Sugar Ray, the Sugar Ray Norcia band. Right? I had Rob Nelson, Matt McCabe, my same drummer Neil Goulman. And it didn't last long, maybe a year. We played a lot in Canada and all that. The exact reason that the Blue Tones came back together was, I don't know. I don't know the exact reason or the phone call that was made. It just happened. Let's get the band back together. And at that point, when we decided to get back together, the piano player Anthony was living in Burlington, Vermont. So we came back together as a four-piece without piano, because he was raising kids and they were all in school up there, and he had gone through a divorce and blah blah blah. He just couldn't make the gigs. It's 5 hours away. So from here, so there were quite a few years where we traveled as a four-piece. Anthony moved back to the area and rejoined the band as the five-piece unit that we are to this day.
Let's go off to songwriting. How do you approach?
We can't forget Mike Welch.
Oh yes, sir.
Who joined? He's the youngest member of the newest member of the band. It's like 16 years now.
They weren't getting Kid Bangham back. He's still in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it had to be like 2000, because here we are, 2016. So Mike was playing every Monday night. Mike Welch was playing every Monday night at the House of Blues, original House of Blues in Cambridge, Massachusetts. A lot of famous people came on Monday nights. He was backed up by my band, the Blue Tones. Without me, I'd stay home for these gigs. It was just my drummer, my bass player, Mudcat, and Dan Aykroyd. Of course, he was affiliated with the House of Blues and the Blues Brothers and all that. He heard Mike on one of those Monday nights. Said, "This kid's a monster."
And that's
where the name came from.
And
Monster Mike.
he was a kid.
13.
14 years old at the time.
Barely knew what a bar chord was.
Yeah. His parents brought him to all the gigs, obviously, and so he kind of grew up musically around us old guys. It was a good place for him to be, because he could have gone the way of a rock guitarist, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But we kept him down to earth, and he learned all the right stuff, all the Otis Rush, Albert King, and that kind of thing. So
He evolves. You get we can take this out. Some of the other child prodigies, like Johnny Lang and who's the other one his age?
Yeah, blue on black. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I do that all the time.
He's got to do with Steve Stills and Barry Goldberg now.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Yeah,
Anyway,
I know who you mean.
You know, you look at him and say, look at this kid, he's 13 or 14. And then you see him when he's 25 and it's like, well, you're not so hot now, you're the same as when you were 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Whereas Mike has...
He kept getting better.
It continues to
Yeah,
grow
yeah. He was
as an artist.
just invited to play. He just played the Chicago Blues Festival, tribute to Otis Rush. You know, who of course I knew and I used to be friends with. He's in bad shape now, you know. But so Mike play. That's how well he's respected in the musical world to represent Otis Rush.
Wow.
Yeah. And Otis was there,
Wow.
standing side the stage, with Buddy Guy and a lot of as Mike was stinging, you know.
Wow.
It was nice for him.
Yeah.
Pretty heavy band he's got, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that kind of gives us what you're doing today musically. I mean, but how about songwriting?
Mm-hmm.
When you write a song, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah. There's no one way. Because there's no one right way. Everybody's different. And even myself, I approach it differently depending on the day. A lot of times I'll do what, you know, those old classic country guys would do and think of a catchy title first and then write some lyrics to that and then maybe have the band help me. I'll have an idea of what kind of rhythm and backup musicians, what they'll do behind the lyrics, but they extol upon that, you know, when we get together. That's one way, you know. And other times I would just keep, as I'm sure you've heard this a million times, some songwriters that keep those scraps of paper in your wallet, or you get an idea, write it down before you forget. Now with the iPhones and all that, I use the notes, and I'll write something there, a sentence here, a paragraph there, an idea. It might hang around for years. Sometimes a song happens in 5 minutes, literally.
Huh.
Usually the best ones, you know. I know, you know, some of the greatest songs, and you know, if you ask Willie Nelson, you know, they asked him to write a song about being on the road. And he's like, all right, well, came up with On the Road Again. He said within 5 or 10 minutes he wrote it. Smash hit, you know. Sometimes when you don't think about something for too much, and it just comes to you, it's like a gift.
Huh.
And that's another way of writing it. One time I did a record with Maurizio Pugno. He's a guitar player from.
Ever hear of that guy?
No.
All right.
I've done.
I think just from him.
Yeah. I've done more than one record with him. In Italy, he'd bring me to Italy, and we recorded in this old theater. And he wanted me to write. See, he can't really put together English that well, although he speaks pretty good English. But there's a certain way that blues guys convey their message, you know. There's cool ways of saying things. He doesn't get that, you know. So could you please write the lyrics? I have the songs, but I don't have any lyrics. I said, well, what about title? No titles. I'm just going to send you MP3s of music, songs, all really arranged with horns, stops, you know, beginnings, endings. I'm like, wow, this is different now. I'd never done this before.
Wow.
Yeah. So I would just sit, you know, I have a music studio down over here, and there's no phone, there's no computer, there's no nothing like that. I'd just sit and play it. I'd listen to it and see what the hell comes up.
Huh.
And I really, really enjoyed it doing that. I've never done that before, but I came up with some, I think it was like 9 or 10 songs, maybe even more, 11 tunes. There was a lot of tunes, and I wrote them all.
Okay.
So
Now, are you the
co-writers.
vocalist as well?
Yes.
On the records?
Yeah.
So these records haven't come out here in the United States. Right?
Yeah, they're available.
Okay,
This
you get
particular
them on-
record here is from a West Coast label.
What was his last name, you remember?
Pugno.
Who's no?
Pugno.
Pugno.
West Coast label.
Yeah, the owner of the label passed away a year or two ago.
Not Alligator.
No.
No, they're from Chicago.
No, see, I should remember this too. But anyway, yeah, he put the record out for Maurizio.
That's a rare accomplishment in the songwriting world. One of the only other people I've heard of was Oscar Hammerstein.
Is that
Richard
right?
Rogers
He did that too, huh?
wrote those songs.
On top.
In fact, Jerome Kern wrote the music, and Oscar always wrote the lyrics afterwards.
Wow.
Which is,
Did not know that.
to me, an impossible task.
It was different. I got into it, and you got to find that record because if you listen to the lyrics, they're not too bad.
Yeah. Well, yes, we collect.
And I put on. I was helping him write the liner notes of the record, and I described that whole situation where I said, "Here we are, like 3,600 miles apart, collaborating on these songs.
Yeah.
Pretty neat, you know." But the distance didn't make any difference because he just by computer he'd send me little files and I'd send. But the thing is, I never sent him what I wrote. I'm kind of secretive that way, you know. Did you? Are you working? I'm working on it. Yeah. I got some ideas, you know. Finally, he brought me back to Italy to do the session, and he had no idea what I came up with. He couldn't wait, you know. We're driving there. Give me a hint. And we just went in the studio and I did him. He literally was crying. He was crying, you know. Just thought they were beautiful.
Did he ever mention Eric Clapton?
Did he?
Yes.
I don't know.
I'm thinking there might be a connection because now that you're talking about this, there might be a connection there. I'll figure all that out.
Yeah. Yep.
I just thought maybe you had run into Clapton at one of his.
No,
There's a guy
no.
that Clapton really likes in Italy.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's him, but it might be Pacific, the record label. Does that sound familiar? No, Pacific or something like that. It's got to do with the West Coast or the ocean or something.
Mike Nesbitt's label was Pacific Arts, but they generally didn't do. It's still going.
I could, you know, before you leave, I can go get the CD and then show it to you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how about as a last thing? What are you doing today with music and recording?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm glad you asked. I would have forgot all about it. We just made a new recording with the Blue Tones, same lineup, for Severin Records, and you know, I was told that this record's going to be in the can for a while because they've got a new distributor. The Thunderbirds are also on the same label, and a lot of shifting going around behind the scenes, and we're going to have to wait till 2017, possibly 2018 before this new project comes out. I was a little despondent about that, but you know, things happen. Well, then I get a phone call. No, the distributor is fine. We worked things out. We're going to put it out in October, so it's coming out October 7th.
Great.
Yeah.
Stocking stuff.
Yeah. Seeing is believing. This is appropriate. That's the title of it.
You're right.
So that'll be out. That's the latest thing we've done, you know, studio wise. And I still get calls from I'm on Duke Robilard's latest record. I haven't heard the record, but it's all blues, and I sing a song. I sang a song for him on that one. On lots of different people's records. And I'm also going to be doing some gigs on the side. There's a little offshoot coming up, more jazz, not jazz so to speak, but on the jazz side of the blues, you know, when you want to call it blaz or something. But it's these tunes that I've done that I've recorded. I did a record called Sweet and Swingin', you know, at one point, and it has, like, you know, some Percy Mayfield, real pretty songs.
Yeah.
That kind of material, Ray Charles Brown kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's stuff that I don't do with the Blue Tones for a reason, because it's not where we're at, you know. It's not how we project ourselves and present ourselves. It's not, it's not on the same page, you know. But it's in my head, and I want to get some of it out. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be playing like just a small no drums,
Really?
just bass and guitar and myself.
Just like Charles Brown. No
Oh,
drums.
sorta, yeah. Maybe might have a piano if it's come, later on, but
Interesting.
but right now it would just be like,
When you play harp?
oh yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
Upright bass to get
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah. yeah. But the harp is more. There's a song I do like Frankie Lane. I like him as the river stay away from my door.
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra did it and all these people, and I recorded it at one point. Great songs. Just I don't get a chance to to do them, so I will be getting a chance.
I have a request.
Yeah.
I would love to hear you sing Please Send Me Someone to Love.
Ah,
The
yeah.
Percy Mayfield
Yeah.
song.
Oh, yeah. I know that one.
You know Jeff Mildown,
Yeah.
Paul Butterfield's version?
Okay. Yeah.
Like, with Amos Garrett on guitar.
Mm-hmm.
That's this what you're calling blaz,
Yeah.
It's the perfect.
Right.
It epitomizes what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
You should
That's it.
YouTube that.
I will.
It's a wicked version.
I will. Because at one point, sometimes I used to play jazz on off nights down in, Stonington, Mystic. There's some jazz players I know. Like Charlie Riggs is another person that comes from Rhode Island, Connecticut, right on the border.
For Roomful.
Okay.
Plays with
Yeah.
Scott Hamilton.
He plays with Scott Hamilton, world famous jazz drummer. He would be the drummer, and I have a guy you probably never heard of called Fox Mills on guitar, and I'd sing the songbook, like jazz standards.
Wow.
Fly Me to the Moon, Pennies from Heaven,
Wow.
all the Do Nothing Till You Hear From Me, all those kind of things. And I enjoy it. It's music. If it's good music, I enjoy
The
it.
secret side of Sugar Ray, the jazz crooner.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So this new project I'm talking about is not really standards, but it's something
Okay.
on the fence between blues and jazz. Yeah.
Sweet.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else there?
I think we got it covered. Because
Yeah.
I'm in good shape with the discography, which means I can fill in all the gaps there
All
where
right.
the records come in.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ray.
Oh, of course.
Appreciate it. All
Yeah.
right.
My pleasure.
We're signing off.